code and the system elements themselves. By the way, someone is not muted, so because I'm hearing some background information. If you can just mute your microphones while you're not talking, that would be good. So
要请各位把麦克风关掉，因为我们会听到您办公室里面的声音。谢谢。好的，谢谢。
Thank you. Still coming through. Still coming through.
弄了个插排，你看，这只能插2个。那个马老师，你看那个。
Bill, would it be possible? Can you unmute yourself?
I can. Oh yes.
Yes.
I'm unmuted. Sorry.
Welcome. Thank you.
My apologies. I must have muted myself there rather than mute other people. So the SQF quality code is simpler, if you like, than the food safety code in that we don't have the GMP, the GAP elements. We just have part A, which is guidance for sites on how to achieve and maintain their SQF quality certification, and the system elements themselves. And the system elements follow the same structure, the same format as in the food safety codes, covers management commitment, document control and records, 2.3 specifications, formulations, realization and supplier approval. 2.4 is a food quality system based on HACCP. 2.5 verification of the quality system. 2.6 product identification, traceability, withdrawal, recall, and crisis management. 2.7 is food fraud as it relates to the quality of the product, not necessarily to the food safety of the product. 2.8 is identity preserved foods in terms of organic, halal, kosher, anything that is identity preserved as such. And 2.9 is training. The difference, I guess, between the quality code and the SQF food safety codes is listed here. Consultants don't need to qualify to be a quality consultant. SQF sites can use any consultant as a quality consultant. A designated SQF quality practitioner is required. So the SQF practitioner on site must meet the requirements of the quality practitioner that is listed in the code. We don't have any quality guidance as such, but we do have quality training materials. Specifically qualified quality auditors are required to be assigned to the audit. So they must be registered. The auditors must be registered as quality auditors. There is the term quality deviations is used rather than non-conformances in the quality code. There are no seasonal implications for quality certification. It either applies or it doesn't apply. There are no critical deviations or critical non-conformances raised for quality audits. Neither score nor rating are issued for quality certification. We don't issue a score, we don't issue a rating. It's merely a case of identifying the number of quality deviations and closing out those quality deviations. There's no requirement for unannounced quality audits, although a quality audit that is attached to a food safety audit, unannounced food safety audit, will be unannounced, but there's no specific requirement for quality audits to be unannounced. There's a suspension protocol that's unique to quality certification. The procedures for changing certification body are unique to quality certification as well. And the requirements for reporting product recalls only applies to food safety recalls, and the use of a technical expert only applies to food safety audits. So these are the major differences between the quality code and the food safety code. So one of the problems that certified sites have is, where does quality fit? A lot of businesses, and it doesn't matter which country they're in, they know they need to meet the regulatory requirement. They know they need to meet their food safety requirement, because food safety can cause injury, harm, and even death to some of their customers. But where quality fits within that framework is sometimes a little bit difficult for some sites. They struggle with defining their safety requirements, their regulatory requirements, their quality requirements, and where they intersect. Sometimes there is short-term thinking. They're only thinking about getting production out. They're not necessarily thinking about maintaining the quality or improving the quality of the product, as long as they can get the product out the door. They don't necessarily think holistically about how to combine their food safety, their regulatory, their environmental, and the quality requirements. Sometimes there are resource limitations within a site that limit their ability to improve their quality. Sometimes they have difficulty in addressing a process and product management approach. They would rather just ensure the quality by endpoint inspection, by inspecting quality into the product, rather than improving the processes. Some manufacturing sites in the food industry have difficulty understanding their customer and consumer requirements. Consumers are their endpoint, or you and I who eat the product. Their customers can be their retailers, other manufacturers, fast food outlets, the businesses that buy their product. And sometimes these are not well defined. They don't understand their customer requirements, don't necessarily understand their consumer requirements. They're just putting product out there and hoping for the best. And also in meeting new customer expectations, pushing new products out and meeting new customer expectations sometimes is a difficulty as well. Very often it's easy to identify food safety, food defense. Food defense, as well known now, is avoiding the product from harm in the supply chain, including within the facility. Food fraud is making sure that food is genuine, that is not being diluted, undermined, or replaced for economic gain. Food safety is fairly straightforward, making sure the product is safe and is safe to eat for consumers. But food quality, sometimes where that intersects with the other three, is a little bit difficult. This is primarily just about looking at food quality. So what we are asking our sites to do is, first of all, determine what their quality attributes are. And they can be a whole bunch of different things, really depending on the product, depending on whether it's a primary product, manufactured product, retail product, food service product. The quality attributes can be size, shape, color, flavor, odor, appearance, etc. Now, very often you'll find some quality attributes in the specifications. The specifications will very often provide information on the chemical and the physical attributes. The moisture level, the protein level, the water activity, the pH level, etc., would all be in the specifications. But there are other attributes beyond that which define the product, including its size, its shape, its color, its appearance, its texture, its consistency, its stability, whether it breaks or not, whether it's burnt sometimes when we receive it, sometimes when it's undercooked when we receive it. Quality attributes are the features regarded as a characteristic of a product. So what defines a product? What makes it appealing to the consumer, or what doesn't make it appealing to the consumer? And that, by the way, can include some service aspects, particularly in this day and age where so much of our product is, of our products are ordered online and distributed online. Service is becoming increasingly important as well. So dispatch, responsiveness, repeatability, accuracy, etc. in service delivery is becoming increasingly important. And businesses also need to define where that intersection is between food safety and food quality. Some food safety parameters are fairly obvious. It's the lack of pathogens, the lack of anything that can hurt chemically, allergen control, etc. Lack of physical attributes. Food safety is fairly. Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
Okay, I just heard someone else is unmuted just now. It's that party again. Someone's having a party down there.
一片欢乐啊！您好啊，请帮我们都摘下来。对，请帮我们把麦克风关掉，谢谢。
Okay, so food safety attributes are well known to us. And generally they fall into the categories of microbiological, chemical, or physical attributes. Food quality attributes, though, are sometimes not as well regarded, or are going to be different between different facilities. Some of them overlap. So net weight, for example, is very often still getting feedback. Please mute your microphones. Food quality aspects sometimes overlap with food safety. Net weight, which is very often a regulatory requirement and is put into food safety, is very often really a quality attribute, not a food safety attribute. So you need to define where to make sure everything is covered between food safety and food quality. And what is the difference? Food safety are issues which are not, if not controlled, can cause harm to the consumer. Food quality aspects are attributes that, if not controlled, will not necessarily cause harm to the consumer, but will cause harm to the business because the consumer doesn't like them and the consumer will move to different products, or the customer, the retail customer, doesn't like them. And as I indicated before, service quality aspects come into that. And again, you won't find you won't find service quality attributes in the specifications, but you've got delivery times, assurances, reliability of delivery, communications with customers, transparency and responsiveness with customers, the aesthetics, the appeal of products. All those service attributes need to be considered in the site's quality management approach and in their approach to the quality code. So just quality management can be a whole lot of different things to different people. And there's a lot of different approaches to quality management. And we know the definitions of quality control, techniques and activities used to fulfill requirements. Generally, it's endpoint inspection is quality control, or inspection of the process is quality control. Quality assurance is going a little bit further, so it's planned and systematic activities implemented so that quality requirements can be fulfilled. So it's proactive, it's preventative. Total quality is a management approach and was been around for a number of years now. To long-term success is probably the equivalent of what we call food safety culture within the food safety world today. Total quality is the management approach to long-term success through customer satisfaction. In a TQM effort, all members of an organization participate in improving processes, products, and services. And nowadays, we just call that quality management. in managing processes to achieve maximum customer satisfaction at the lowest overall cost. So that is achieving customer satisfaction at the lowest cost. And that is the approach that SQF takes within the quality code. Really, this is all just background, but it's important you understand where SQF is coming from in applying the quality code. So our approach, the SQF approach to quality management, is what we call the 3 C's: conformance, customer-driven product requirements, conforming to customer expectations; consistently, understanding process capability and process variation so that the product that is produced and sold and consumed is consistent. It's the same product every time. And the cost, maintaining high product quality and process capability at the lowest possible cost. So these are the 3 aspects by which we have designed and we're implementing the quality code. So firstly, it conforms to customer requirements. Do manufacturers even know who their customers are? Sometimes, do they know the demographic? Is the product being sold to seniors? Is it being sold to people who are being compromised? Is it being sold to children? Is it being sold to teenagers? Knowing the market, knowing the customer, and the customer can also include the next business in the supply chain. Are manufacturers meeting the retailer requirements? Are they designing the product so they fit properly on shelves? Are they making sure they've got reliability to the retailer and making sure that retailer always has product? Because certainly in this part of the world, I'm sure it's in yours as well, retailers hate having empty shelves. And if a manufacturer cannot supply consistently, then that shelf space will be taken up by someone else. So knowing the customer, we expect sites to know their customer, next business in the supply chain, as well as their final consumers. The customer is anyone who buys a product, whether directly or indirectly. Sites need to research and understand customer needs and expectations and to manage the customer relationships. Now, I know when we were researching the edition 9 of the quality code, we got a lot of feedback from sites, manufacturing sites, saying, we don't do any customer surveys. We don't design products based on our customer requirements. We just develop the product and sell it into the marketplace. But they do know their customer requirements, because if that product is successful, then sales will go up. If the product is unsuccessful, the market doesn't like it, then the sales will go down. So they do understand their customer needs, and they must also respond, starting to positively respond against customer needs. Consistency is making sure the product is the same every time. Not, I used the example the other day, and it probably applies again to cookies or crackers. If it's burnt in one packet and it's undercooked in the next packet, then consumers are going to very quickly get turned off and go to an alternative product. They want the same product every time. And the way to do that is to reduce process variation, not just to put quality control inspectors to inspect out the bad product, but to reduce process variation so the consistency of the product is maintained. And analyzing and measuring the capability of key processes, and I'll come to that shortly. Designing processes to achieve the desired outcomes. Making effective use of resources and building quality in rather than endpoint inspection. This is based on work that's been around for many, many years, and it's attributed to W. Edwards Deming, Dr. W. Edwards Deming, who did a lot of work post-war in Japan in particular, but right throughout Asia and also in the United States, on understanding and reducing process variation, because there is natural variation in every process. This is due to slight variations in processing parameters and ingredients, in machine tolerances, in machine timing, in environment and human intervention, sometimes even weather or environmental conditions. And some argue in the food industry that we have got natural raw materials, therefore we're naturally going to get process variation. But we can take a lot of steps, a lot of measures to reduce and minimize that process variation. And it shows there, if a process is not capable of meeting the specification limits, then there is wastage. If it is capable and it stays within the specification limits, then the process is not going to create wastage and will be much more consistent in its approach. So that's very simplified, but that's the reality. So by doing that, by reducing process costs, we can improve the cost of quality. And the cost of quality is the real cost of making a product, mistakes and all, minus the cost of a product if we get it right the first time. So the real cost includes all the wastage, the spoilage, the downgrading, etc., as a result of process variations or mistakes. Whereas the cost that you want to aspire to is the cost of making the product if we get it right the first time. So if we can reduce process variation within a product, then we improve product quality, we improve productivity, we improve efficiency, and we do that at the lowest potential cost. Therefore, we have got better market competitiveness. So the approach that we take within the SQF code is to rely on conformance, consistency, or to encourage conformance to customer expectations, process consistency and reduce cost by identifying and controlling quality threats using the HACCP method, and by using process control techniques and quality tools to improve quality and productivity. Now, I'm just going to stop there for a second and see if we've got any questions so far. And then I'm going to go on to using the HACCP method to measure and control quality. Does anyone want to ask any questions just now? Or are you happy for me to continue?
有朋友要问问题吗？也可以在我们的留言里面问。好，那我们就继续咯。Yes, Bill, we will continue.
Okay, let me get back to where I was. Okay, the SQF quality code for as long as it's been in existence, including in edition 9, including in edition 8, 8.1, has used the HACCP method to measure and control quality. But sometimes we still have difficulty in applying it, and we still have difficulty, auditors still have difficulty in auditing it. So what I'm going to touch on here are the preliminary steps. The threat identification, threat analysis and control measures, determining and how to develop a quality threat analysis, developing a risk analysis matrix for quality threats, control measures and interventions, identifying critical quality points and critical limits, critical quality limits that is, and then of course what follows from that is monitoring and corrective actions and verification and documentation. Now the justification for measuring and controlling quality using the HACCP method is in Codex itself. In the introduction to the Codex Alimentarius Commission, HACCP guidelines, it does indicate that while it is primarily used for food safety, it can be applied to quality as well. And that's the justification that SQF has always used for using Codex to measure, to identify and control quality threats. We do change the language a little bit. In food safety management, we talk about a hazard, which is a biological, chemical, or physical agent in or condition of food with the potential to cause an adverse health effect, and that's a Codex definition. So it's a biological, chemical, or physical agent in food. Whereas in food quality management, we use the term threat rather than hazard. And that's just to differentiate between quality threats and food safety hazards. It's an identified risk that has the potential, if not controlled, to affect the quality of a product, but does not cause illness. So food safety management is a hazard, food quality management is a threat. Also, as I indicated before, we don't talk about non-conformances in food safety management, we talk about deviations. Non-conformance is a non-compliance raised against an element of one of the SQF food safety codes, either minor, major, or critical, whereas a deviation in a quality code is a non-compliance raised against the SQF quality code and can only be a minor or a major. There are no critical deviations in the quality code. So there's also the argument that food safety plans are very often easier than food quality plans because food safety, HACCP for food safety is generally well defined. We've been doing it for years. It's defined for all clients. There's always clear categories into microbiological, chemical, and physical. There are very often clear control mechanisms. And in some cases, it's actually regulated as well. Whereas with food quality plans, the categories are not as straightforward, and very much they are defined by the product categories and by the site themselves. So they're different for each specification or contract. There can be a whole list of different characteristics. The action or response level is not as clear, and the expectations are often not as expressed. So let's just take a look at the Codex methodology as it applies to food quality plans rather than food safety plans. So here's the 12 steps of Codex. Step 6 is principle 1, step 7 is principle 2, but steps 1 to 5 are what we call the preliminary steps. HACCP team and scope, describe the product, intended use, and process flow diagram, steps 1 to 5. And then, of course, we have the principles, principle 1 to principle 7. When in the food quality plan, the team may be the same or different from the food safety team. It needs to include someone with HACCP training and experience and someone with product and process knowledge. But in the food quality team, it may also include customer service, marketing, dispatch, logistics, and product development. R&D people, product development people, may include more head office people if they are involved in R&D and product development. The scope of the food quality plan must be clearly identified, including the start point and end point of the process under consideration. And it needs to also consider the impact of material and ingredient quality on the quality parameters. The scope of the food quality plan could even be different to the food safety plan, because the food safety plan, the start point and end point of the food safety plan is generally incoming materials through to storage of finished product. But if dispatch and service delivery are part of the food quality requirements, then the scope of the food quality plan may go beyond the finished product warehouse into delivery to a distribution center or finished product warehouse or a retailer. So it needs to be designed around the requirements of food quality and the determination of quality attributes and the threats that can come from those quality attributes. Describing the product, most quality requirements will be included in the finished product specifications within the site. Again, as I said before, that's the chemical attributes, the physical attributes, the microbiological attributes, the moisture level, the protein level, the pH level, etc., will be in the specifications. However, the team also needs to consider any additional quality parameters that should be added to the specification for consideration, like the flavor, size, color, the other dimensions of the product that contribute to its attractiveness to the marketplace. The quality product description will differ from the product description included in the food safety plan, because the product description in the food safety plan is identifying the factors that influence the safety of the product, whereas the quality product description is identifying the attributes that impact the quality, the acceptability of the product in the marketplace. And it might also include specifications from suppliers for ingredients that are being supplied into the product. Identify the intended use, describe the intended use, potential misuse or abuse, and potential threats to customers or consumers of the product. The intended use may be the same as the food safety plan, but consideration may need to be given to package integrity and warehouse storage, even pallet integrity, palletization, packaging, protection of the product, ease of opening for retail packages by some demographics, etc. So there may be other aspects that impact the quality of the product as well as the food safety of the product. On-site confirmation of the flow diagram is fairly straightforward. Confirm the flow diagram on site. It's originally completed as part of the food safety plan. It's a good opportunity for sites to re-walk and reconfirm their flow diagram in their food safety plan, and then review it during the food quality plan development. And then, of course, we get to step 6, principle 1, which in the HACCP methodology is the key step in the process. Same in the food safety plan. Hazard identification, hazard analysis, and hazard control measures are the key step in the development and maintenance of a HACCP food safety plan, and the same applies to food quality plan, except we call it threat identification, threat analysis, and threat control measures. Now, some people say, "Oh, you know, CCPs, that's the most important thing in the food safety plan." Yes, it's important. It's very important. But in this food safety plan, hazard identification, analysis, and control measures is the step in the process where you make sure you've got everything covered. And it's the same in the food quality plan. Threat identification, threat analysis, and control measures are where you make sure you've got everything covered in the food quality plan. All potential quality threats. Threat analysis will be very different from the food safety risk analysis because it's based on the significance to the customer or consumer. And threat control, you need to consider interventions required at each step to control quality threats. Now, what do I mean by that? Control measures must be in place for all significant threats. Codex HACCP actually directs that all threats must be, or hazards, as it says in Codex, must be controlled. But for most part, we say all significant threats. So you need to determine the significance of threats. There may be more than one control measure applied for each significant threat, as it is in the food safety plan. And it's up to the food quality team to determine if control measures need to be in place for quality issues that are deemed insignificant. Now, as I said before, sometimes it's difficult to determine the categories. Again, with the food safety plan, we've got microbiological, chemical, physical, things that are likely to cause harm if the process goes wrong. It's up to the site to determine what their quality categories are in the food quality plan. It can be the physical characteristics, the size, depending on the product, obviously, the size, shape, the texture, the viscosity, etc., all those aspects. It could be non-pathogenic microbiological criteria. It could be non-food safety related chemical criteria, organoleptic, flavor, taste, odor, will generally be a key part of quality categories. Packaging that's not food safety related may also be one of the categories. Labeling that is not food safety related, very often it is. And we cover that a lot in the food safety code. But labeling that's not food safety related may be a part of the quality categories. And service, delivery, response times, etc., reliability of service will be an important part of quality categories. But it's up to the site to determine, it's up to the quality practitioner at the site to determine, as they work through their food quality plan, what their categories are of threats within within their particular product and processes. So this is just an example of a quality threat matrix. It's not always going to apply. And again, it's up to the site to determine their own quality threat matrix and to use it consistently throughout the process. The frequency can be very much the same as the food safety plan. Common, known to occur, could occur, not expected to occur, to practically impossible. But the consequences in the quality threat matrix are going to be very different from the food safety threat hazard matrix. Because with the food safety, the consequences can be serious. It can cause harm, can cause injury, or can cause death. That doesn't apply to the quality threat matrix, but you can still get the most serious consequence as the business ceasing. Why? Because the products have been rejected by their major customers. The consumers won't buy the product because of quality issues. So the consequence can still be severe, but it's not going to be harmful as it is with food safety. So it can be, and this is just an example, anything from the business ceases to food recall to rejection of delivery to warning advice from customers to commercially insignificant. That can include, by the way, now, and some sites are doing this, of reviews. Their online reviews of their product are included as one of the consequences. That's negative online reviews as one of the consequences in their quality threat matrix. Then, of course, we get to determine critical quality points. And what are critical quality points? They're steps in the process where a quality or operational threat can be prevented, eliminated, or reduced to an acceptable level. It's a must do. It's a step in the process where you must do something to get the quality right. It can be where the product is acidified to reach a certain pH level. It can be the step in the process where it can be the oven or the dryer, where the product has got to reach a certain temperature to make it consumable. Not just from a food safety point of view, but from a quality point of view. It can be an oven which is baking crackers, where you don't want the temperature too high, otherwise it will burn the product, or you don't want it too low, where it will be a food safety risk as well as a quality risk. It'll be undercooked. So it's a step in the process where a quality or operational threat can be prevented. Now, know what you're thinking. Can you have the same step in the process as a CCP and a CQP? Yes, you can. Of course you can. And the ones I just gave you, a dryer or a cooker or a oven, can be a CQP and a CCP. And you've got to make sure that these two align. At what point is the product safe? At what temperature, time is the product safe? And at what temperature, time does the product then become unpalatable because it's burning, it's going over the top? So they can be both CCPs and CQPs. So a CQP is a step in the process where if you don't control it at that point, the quality threat will continue or persist. And by the way, if a site has a HACCP plan that includes food safety and food quality, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some smaller facilities do that. They combine their food safety plan and their food quality plan into one HACCP plan. If they want to do that, that's fine. But CCPs and CQPs must be differentiated because CCPs always apply to food safety, CQPs always apply to quality issues. Critical quality limits are very often specification limits if it's a finished product. They must be achievable in absolute values and indicated as a range. And very often they will be determined by the customer. In retailer-based product and product is being produced for particular retailers, very often the specification limit is set by the customer, by the retailer, and the CQP has to apply those critical quality limits. They must be validated through customer requirements, retailer requirements, or regulatory limits. Could be fill weights, which are regulatory requirements. Critical quality limits need to be compared to process capability limits, and I'll come to that shortly, to make sure that the product is capable of achieving the critical quality limits without causing wastage. And process capability limits need to be reduced to reduce process variation. And again, I'll come to that shortly. Then, of course, once we get to critical quality limits, the process is much the same as it is for a food safety plan. Monitoring of critical quality limits. The site needs to establish the method and frequency of monitoring each CQP. The level of monitoring should be sufficient to ensure that appropriate corrective action is taken if the product is found to be outside critical limits. And of course, the questions to be answered are the same as with a food safety plan. What is to be measured? Where is it to be measured? How is it to be measured? How often? How frequently? And who is responsible for sampling and testing? Then, of course, corrective actions. Deviation is brought to the attention of the responsible person. Product is identified, the status of the product is reviewed, and action taken according to the prescribed corrective actions in the HACCP audit table. So again, you've got that same flow as you have with the food safety plan, except it's the CQPs, the critical quality points, the critical quality limits that are controlling it, and the monitoring and the corrective actions are associated with the deviations from the critical quality limits. And then, of course, we have the verification procedures, which are also in the quality code, which verification, just as a reminder, involves the application of methods, procedures, tests, and other evaluations in addition to monitoring to determine compliance with the food quality plan. It's a set of procedures designed to ensure the food quality plan is working, and it's the responsibility of the team to ensure that verification procedures are in place and the method and the frequency of verification is specified and scheduled. So for those of you who are auditors, this is our expectation, SQF's expectation in auditing the food quality plan in edition 9, and by the way, it hasn't changed from edition 8. All preliminary steps are carried out. The site can't just assume that because they've been done for the food safety plan, they also have been done for the food quality plan. Because as we just described, steps 1 to 5 will be different for the food quality plan to the food safety plan. There is a food quality plan team in place and active. It may be the same as a food safety plan team, but as we discussed, it should include people from marketing, from sales, from the supply end of the supply chain, from logistics, from delivery, from R&D, from product development. We expect the auditor to ensure that all quality threats are identified and controlled using the HACCP method. If you notice that a site has a product that is shape or appearance or size critical, then is that quality attribute identified? Is the quality threat identified? And is it controlled using the HACCP method? There's a protocol in place. There's a procedure in place for determining the significance and priority of quality threats. Critical quality points are correctly determined and again may overlap, may be the same as critical control points. That's fine, but make sure the critical limits there are properly identified and sufficient to control the food safety and the quality at that process step. Monitoring clearly indicates who, where, when and how, and corrective actions are clear and unambiguous, and monitoring corrective actions and verification procedures are being followed. That is a requirement for SQF auditors who are auditing the food quality plan. The other major aspect that I touched on before in maintaining the 3 C's, conformance, consistency, and cost, is improving product quality and productivity. Process control methods can be effectively used to optimize production processes and improve process efficiency, and thereby improving product quality and reducing waste. Control charts and other quality tools should be in use for control of key processes. Now, I'll just touch on one of the major changes in the Edition 9 code now, and that is that we've taken out the term statistical. So we still talk about process control. We're still looking at the use of control charts and other quality tools. But we found that the use of statistical, which was in edition 8 and 8.1, tended to scare a lot of sites. They didn't understand it. They didn't understand how to use it. They weren't quite there yet. A lot of sites are. A lot of sites are already using statistical process control tools, but some sites were behind the learning process in that, and were scared off by the term statistical. So we're still looking at the use of quality tools and process improvement tools as a way of identifying problems in the process, measuring process capability, measuring process output, and improving processes. We just took the term statistical out of it. So some of the tools for process improvement that should be used: cause and effect diagrams, Ishikawa or fishbone diagrams. Check sheets, not so much. Most sites are already doing, have already got check sheets. The problem is they don't necessarily use the data that's in those check sheets to run control charts or process capability studies. And that's what they should be doing. Control charts, that's X bar and R charts, range and average charts, or just straight control charts, can and should be used to identify what the process is doing historically. And also as a result of that, process capability studies need to be done. Histograms, Pareto charts, scatter diagrams. Now, which one should apply? Really depends on the site. It depends on their maturity, depends on their products, depends on their processes. Depends on where they are on the scale of quality control through to quality management, but we want to see sites improving. It's not a case of saying, well, yes, they've got everything under control. They've got methodologies in place to be able to identify their process capabilities, what their processes are actually doing, and improving those processes. What the counter to that is, if an auditor goes on site and he sees a lot of wastage, and that is historical. It's not just happened at the time, but it's been happening historically. A lot of wastage, a lot of product being pulled off the line, a lot of downgrading or spoilage within the system that is not part of the process itself. Then the indication is that the site doesn't have a good control over their process and is really not under control for that part of the code. Process capability, pretty straightforward. LSL, by the way, is lower specification limit, USL, upper specification limit. If you look at that top left-hand corner, the top left-hand drawing, the process easily meets the specification limits. It's always well within the specification limits. Now, the opportunity there is for that business to reduce their specification, their range of specification limits. In other words, increase the LSL and reduce the USL so that they've got more competitiveness in the market. The top right-hand drawing there is the process comfortably meets specification limits. If that is the case, and that is happening consistently in all shifts, in all events, then the site can just leave things alone. They're minimizing the wastage. Everything's under control, but they may want to look at reducing the process variation again, so they can get more to the top left-hand corner. Lower specification, the lower left-hand drawing there, the process only just meets specification limits. You get a new material, new ingredient, new shift coming on, and there will be wastage. It will exceed the specification limits, and you will be creating wastage. And the bottom right corner is the process doesn't meet specification limits, and anything outside of that, anything outside of the lower specification limit and upper specification limit is wastage, it's spoilage, it's downgrading, it's loss, it's money, it's cost to the business. So these are the two aspects of the quality code that we're asking. Obviously, we're asking sites to implement the whole quality code and auditors to audit the whole quality code. But the two absolute requirements is that the site is using the HACCP methodology to identify and control all quality threats, and that they understand and are measuring their processes and are working on continuously improving their processes to reduce and minimize waste. Now, before I take your questions, I'm just going to go through some of the changes to the SQF Quality Code Edition 9. We do have a document on this. It's on the SQF website, sqfi.com. And if anyone wants a copy, then unfortunately it's only in English. But if anyone wants a copy, then I'm sure Sarah will be able to send one to you. So just going through Part A, as I discussed before, the scope of certification for the SQF Quality Code has changed so that sites certified to another food safety management system, GFSI standard, ISO 22000, any food safety, second-party food safety management system are eligible for the SQF quality certification. The scope of certification must be clearly identified and agreed by the certification body prior to the initial quality certification audit. In the system elements, 2.1, a management commitment, we've removed some of the food safety specific language to accommodate the quality system of other food safety management systems. We've included requirements on quality policy and management responsibility from edition 8.1. There's been general rewording of the policy statement. And we've added a requirement for consistency with the food safety codes. We've added a requirement regarding the implementation, maintenance, and continuous improvement of the quality culture within the site, as well as obviously the food safety culture. 2.2, which is document control and records, very little change there. Removed reference to the quality manual and replaced it with documentation that outlines the methods and procedures to allow for a more flexible approach. It allows for electronic documentation rather than just a hard copy quality manual. We've added a register of current SQF quality documents and amendments to documents be maintained. And we provided reference from the SQF Food Safety Code regarding condition and storage of records. So really, not much change, and many of the changes, by the way, are just to change the format and the numbering to be in line with the SQF Food Safety Code. Still applies to all the other GFSI benchmark standards, but the format is continuous with the food safety codes. 2.3, specifications and product development. Again, not many changes. We've added detail of when shelf life trials are to be conducted. In 2.3, all specifications are summarized under 232, which includes raw material specifications, ingredient specifications, work in process, finished goods specifications, and service providers. And we've approved suppliers were moved from 234 to 234, which were formerly in 244, and we've added requirements for personnel conducting supplier audits. So they need to be appropriately trained. And 2.4, which is the food quality system, and which includes the food quality plan, customer requirements, quality fundamentals, food quality plan, approved supplier program, non-conforming product, rework, and product release. We've added product sampling is now under 244. It was previously 254. And again, this is just a movement of approved supplier to 234 from 244. But we've added the accreditation requirements in 2.4 for external laboratories. They need to be accredited now to ISO 17024 as per the food safety plan. Food quality system verification, again, just movement to product sampling has moved. And we've added that staff conducting internal audits shall be independent of the function being audited. And again, in 2.6, it's really just movement of elements to accommodate and to fit with the changes in the food safety code. Crisis management, which used to be in 2.1, has been moved to 2.6 as 2.6.3. And we've added records of withdrawal and recall need to be maintained. And lastly, in this 2.7, which is food fraud, we've added comments that the food vulnerability assessment, food safety and quality could be included in the same assessment and should be included in the same assessment. Any of the GFSI standards have requirements for food fraud vulnerability assessment. We have kept them separate in the food safety code and the food quality code because food fraud is not always injury related or harm related. But the vulnerability assessment should all be the one vulnerability assessment for the business. And we've added label approval into the requirements for identity preserved foods as well. So where a site has identity preserved foods, which again is organic or Muslim or kosher or halal, beg your pardon, not Muslim, but halal, or any such branding as identity preserved, then label approval must be included within the requirements. And then 2.9, training consolidated down into two sections. And we've added training requirements for sensory evaluation, and then there's a change the training register to training records. So these are all the changes. Not many. The major change, as I indicated right up front, was it can now apply to other food safety management standards. And the other major change is the removal of the term statistical. But apart from that, there's very little difference between edition 9 of the quality code and edition 8.1. Now, something I just want to touch on before I take questions is something that Sarah and I are working on called SQF Quality Bites. And it's going to be a series of 10 short discussions. By short, I mean 3 to 4 minute video discussions to assist quality practitioners, that's site quality practitioners, and SQF quality auditors to fulfill the requirements of the SQF Quality Code Edition 9. And the list of 10 is indicated there: food safety versus food quality, quality attributes, the 3 C's of quality, customer expectations, HACCP food quality plan, preliminary steps in the food quality plan, quality threats, critical quality points, building in quality process control, and process control techniques. These will be short 3 to 4 minute videos. I'm going to do the initial one, and then Sarah's going to translate them so that they're available in each of the Asian or the main Asian languages that we require. So that's something we're working on. I would say they're going to come a bit at a time or a bite at a time. So we'll start working on them towards the end of this year, and by the beginning of next year, they should be out and available for you. So surely by now, we do have some questions. Any questions?
There is a question from Nathan. In the conversations.
Oh, it's in the conversations, beg your pardon, okay. This is from Nathan? Is it from Nathan? Is that the question I'm looking at?
Nathan Hansen, a question about CQP.
Okay, yeah. Does SQF, the question from Nathan is, does SQF provide any examples using HACCP tool to analyze CQPs? As we always know, there are clear criterions to HACCP analysis process and food safety management, but no universally accepted quality factors because it's so customized that threats may be differently based upon different requirements. Yes, you're absolutely right, Nathan. It is going to be it's going to be very different with quality because, as you say, there's no universally accepted quality factors. Unfortunately, we can't give you any specific examples. We do have a lot of examples within the sites that are quality certified, but they are proprietary and confidential to those particular sites. And also they vary for the very point that you've indicated. They vary a lot because they are customized for the product or the process or the particular business. So there is no, as you indicated, there's no universally accepted quality categories. They are very much individual and up to the individual sites. So I'm sorry if that doesn't answer your question adequately, but that's a reality. There are a number of other questions there, Sarah, but I'm not able to read them. I see Amerlink's there. Hello, Amerlink. Long time since we met. So, do you want to cover some of those questions, Sarah?
Thank you, Bill. I put some Chinese translations here, so we can catch up with the key points today. And the questions from Anthony, we will have a quick discussion after this webinar with Anthony.
Okay. That is you, me, and Anthony?
Me?
No, is that just
yes,
you and Anthony?
You and me and Anthony.
Okay, right. That's fine. So are there any other questions that I need to answer just now?
Okay, and we will prepare the translation from today and send to our Chinese colleagues next week.
Okay.
And also, I would like to, Bill, is it possible to explain about the registration fee for SQF quality?
Oh, not off the top of my head, I don't think, because
I have a slide. I have a slide for that. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to?
Okay.
I'll stop sharing. Do you want to share the slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay. While Sarah's putting that up, I will just say this. If a site is already registered to the food safety code, then there is no additional registration fee for quality. So they're already registered based on their size and their revenue for the food safety code. There is no additional fee for the quality code. The quality code site registration only applies to sites that are certified to another food safety management system and want to be certified to the quality code. So it's standalone quality registration. Sorry, sorry, Sarah, you continue.
Thank you. Is the screen ready?
Yes, it is. I can see it.
Okay, so I'll have a quick discussion in Chinese. 那各位朋友好，这个荧幕上现在是一张投影片哦，就是各位如果在协助或者是解释给客户说，这个部分的费用是怎么算的？那 Bill 刚刚有提到，第一个算法是，如果它是在 SQF 这边呢，食品安全跟质量一起进行的话，都跟以前一样收同样的费用，就是牧场是200块美金，然后制造业的话就是按它的年度营业收入的幅度来计算，那它不用另外来付质量审核的注册费。如果说是工厂呢，它现在有 FSC、BRC、IS 等等的话，他现在只是单独来申请这个 Quality Audit 的话，这边会有一个注册的费用是250块美金。那在荧幕上大家可以看到这个是我们在 database 里面它会显示的一个方法，它在比较下面的地方，所以有的时候会漏掉。然后它只要点选这个进去，就是自动显示它会是250块美金的注册费。那任何注册的这个安排，各位都欢迎直接把客户拉进群里，我们可以一起讨论，为他做最简化的安排，就协助各位工作更顺利一点。然后顺便 ，so just a new close, is that okay? 好，刚刚在那个会话里面 ，yes。刚刚在那个 conversation 里面也有跟各位介绍，就是新的3本标准呢，刚刚发布，可以在 SQF 的网站，或者是请各位到12星的微信公众号，或者是写 email 给我，都可以取得。那这个3本新的是动物产品制造，专门是肉品加工用的，膳食补充剂制造，以及动物饲料制造。有需求的话就请联系我们，谢谢。各位有没有问题？好的，Bill, we don't have any questions.
Okay. Just well, if there are no more questions, then if there are questions, then please get back to Sarah or myself. I'm just saying on the chat that I see many familiar names on the list there, as well as Annalink. I see Tracy, Belinda, Jackie, many of my other friends in China. So good to see you all. Hope you're all well. Thank you, and also Jason, of course, Jason from TH China. So good to see you all. Thank you for listening. Sarah will carry on with the. Sarah will provide additional information to you. So.